I look at Harvey as somewhat of as a chameleon. He's able to blend into his environment very easily.
Again, I find myself hiding my real feelings and buddying up to a serial killer. But if I want to find the truth, I have to give Harvey the chance to explain himself. He starts by presenting himself as a good Samaritan.
So you would consider those mercy killings?
Some of them had been in comas for many, well, semi-comas, in and out. Didn't know nothing. What I was doing I thought was right. And the patients that I took care of, I like to think, I made their passing easy. They didn't give me permission, no. But some of the patients didn't have no one to give permission for them. They didn't have a choice, and sometimes there was no family there to make that choice for them. And I made it for them. I was being the judge and the jury and executioner.
And then he got caught.
Then your downfall was with Powell.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what got you here.
My downfall was not leaving that day.
Yeah. Yes. Take me back to that day. What happened?
I was in a hurry. And I put it through his G-tube. I knew it was a coroner's case. And he smelled something that smelled like bitter almonds. And he started running tests.
How did you feel then when he started conducting this investigation?
Well, Murphy's Law, just keep pushing, keep pushing. Let's put it this way. The day that everything was going on, I didn't know which way to go. And Murphy's Law has a way of things happen for a reason.
Do you consider yourself a sociopath?
Well, that's what most people consider me.
What do you think?
I'm just Donald Harvey.
Yeah.
I haven't changed a bit. I have been rehabilitated. I'm ready to go back to the streets.
Donald Harvey used his position as a hospital orderly to kill dozens of patients at 3 hospitals over 17 years. Over the years, he has continued to call himself a mercy killer. The way he tells it, he was doing his victims a favor.
The patients may have had a month to 6 months to live, and they were mostly put there just to die. The families, instead of sending them to a nursing home, they put them there. Or if they had no family, the county or whatever would put them there. Those are a lot of the type patients that I terminated.
You didn't stay with one specific method of hastening the deaths of these patients.
I was like a MacGyver. Well, see, there's one way. You take a patient that's got heart disease. You can take the spinal fluid and drain enough of the spinal fluid to cause them to have a heart attack. But with the cyanide, that was a quick death. I was careful with my dosage. I didn't want no feedback coming towards me.
Harvey selected hospital patients who were expected to die. Pretty convenient for someone who wants to call himself a mercy killer. That also made his murders practically invisible. He's an entirely different kind of killer from Joseph Condro, who left his victims' bodies where they could easily be found. Harvey is what we call an organized killer. He carefully planned his murders in order to avoid detection. Harvey began killing at the age of 18, and in his first year as an orderly, he killed more people than most serial killers do in a lifetime.
There was 15 deaths when I was 18.
There's already been 15?
No, when I went to work in the hospital, the year between I was 18 to I was 19, there was 15 deaths.
And you mentioned one time the pillowcase. What are the other methods?
I started using morphine because it wasn't controlled that much in Kentucky, especially in small hospitals in the 1970s. And I did unplug a couple of ventilators. I used cyanide, I used arsenic, I used adhesive cleaner, a plastic bag too.
Were you experimenting, or was it just whatever was available?
I wanted the quickest method of death. A funeral director and I became lovers, and he showed me how to use a plastic bag and what the mark, so a pillow would leave a certain mark as opposed to a bag. If you held the bag down, or if you put it in the mouth and nose of like a comatose patient.
Yeah.
Cyanide on a black person will not show, but it'll show on a white person. If you give it in, give it by shot. If you put it in an IV, no. I used it in their feeding tubes. That's what got me busted. I was in a hurry.
Well, did you consider them victims, by the way? The patients?
No, I don't consider them. They were my patients. I never looked at it as murder till I was actually arrested. I always looked at it as mercy. You know,
Right.
Today, you know, they have the hospice units, and that's assisted suicide, but it's with the person's
Making a choice.
making a choice.
Right. These people never had a choice.
Harvey relished this ability to decide when people will die. He seemed to never have a second thought.
Will Donald Harvey have nightmares?
No, because I have put it to rest. I've had months and years to live with it.
Serial murder is really about power, control, and domination. Donald Harvey wanted to play God, but he was still trying to convince me he is motivated by compassion.
If I was laying, okay, look at you today, and you weigh 90 pounds a year from now, and you don't know nothing, do you still want to be hanging on?
Good question, because in 1983, on a case, I was in a coma for a week. I collapsed, and as far as they knew, I had no brainwave activity. My digestive system shut down. I felt tremendous pain.
I'm pretty sure Harvey would have had no problem taking me out. But what if the tables were turned?
Would you like somebody treating you like yourself?
If they wanted to come, and go ahead, but don't get caught. Damn, don't get caught, because you know them little cells and bathrooms you live in ain't all that.
Harvey worked pretty hard to convince me that he was a mercy killer. But there are plenty of cases where he was anything but merciful.
But they weren't all mercy.
They weren't all
mercy. No. Now, the first death will occur at about 18 years of age with you. Can you tell me about that, how that happened?
Just one guy, he'd had a stroke. He had an IV in, and he got the IV out, and the sister told me to go and clean up the bed and change the IV, take it out because it was empty. And when I went to pull back the sheet, he covered me in stool that was in his hand, and I smothered him to death.
How did you do that?
With a pillow. I wasn't going to take any more. I mean, I'd had enough, and when he put the stool in my face was the breaking point.
You believe that? That's what happened?
It started me on the roller coaster, which I couldn't get off.
A gentleman had hit Donald with a urinal, and Donald says he was knocked out. I don't know whether he was or not. He went to catheterize him later on that day, and then he took a wire clothes hanger and opened it up and jammed it inside the catheter, and it ended up rupturing his stomach.
And so you went in there, you gave him the catheter, and then you straightened out a coat hanger. You ran that baby right through there, right into, I guess, was it 2 feet or so into his intestines?
Because it caused him to have peritonitis.
Peritonitis, right. He died a couple of days later.
I shouldn't have done that. I should have never been allowed around that patient again. That was poor security on the hospital's part. I mean, you beat me up today and then I'm taking care of you tomorrow? Oh, I don't think so.
That's called projection. So it's like projection. Well, the hospital shouldn't have put me with this guy. And they probably shouldn't have done it, but you blame more the hospital.
I mean, I got a pump not this big on my head. My ribs are bruised, and he poured urine on me, and he kicked me several times. He cold cocked me with that metal urinal. I should have never been allowed around the patient. They're not responsible for the death part. They're responsible for his security.
The patient is the one who's dead, but Harvey's still talking about what the patient did to him. It's a common theme with serial killers. Most of these guys are narcissists, but Harvey was unique in another way. Serial killers are predators who enjoy the hunt for a victim. Harvey, on the other hand, didn't need to hunt for his prey. Like fish in a barrel, potential victims were always within easy reach. At some point in an interview with a killer, I will go back to the guy's childhood. I want to know when the homicidal urge first appeared. And more often than not, I find that these evil impulses show up very early on. Adolescence is a pretty common time for a future violent offender to start forming his sick fantasies. It also comes as no surprise that a lot of these guys had terrible childhoods. Broken homes and abusive parents are common.
People always ask me when I go out, is it nature and nurture? You know what I'm talking about? Is someone born bad?
So you're basically saying, is someone born a bad seed?
Right.
Well, no. Just think of circumstances.
Harvey says people close to him began molesting him at age 4.
You remember still the specifics of that?
He said this was a thing that boys did. And not to tell Grandma, he used the orphanage. He says, I'll kill your mommy and daddy and you'll have to go to the orphanage.
So you just kept quiet and held this in. Was there a lot of anger there?
There was some anger.
Physical or sexual abuse can have an impact on the victim for the rest of his life. But not everyone who has been abused turns into a killer. I believe that's a choice the offender makes. I wanted to find out how much Harvey felt these events changed him.
Would you say you were angry?
I learned how to manipulate.
But there is another adolescent criminal signature that Harvey shares with most other serial murderers.
And what about the business with the animals?
I killed my bird. My mom told me I had to take it back because it wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
It was just a little tiny thing. And I refused to give it up, so I killed it with a hoe.
But what was the message there?
Just I didn't want it to go back because if the hen was going to peck it to death, I might as well put it to death. And I mean, I knew how to wring its neck, so I knew the outcome would be if I just wring its neck, but I used a hoe.
It must have shocked the hell out of her when you did that, right?
Well, my mom said, what did you do that for? And that was it. Nothing was ever, I didn't get a spanking or nothing. And I also took the neighbor man's 2 cows later on. I was about 16. No, it was right before I graduated from high school. I took them out into the woods and slit their throat. That was the only thing I ever did for his animals.
Well, it's quite a bit. I mean, it's more than a lot of people do.
At the Behavioral Sciences Unit, we looked into violent offenders' backgrounds, and we found 3 childhood activities that could be seen as warning signs: cruelty to animals, setting fires, and bedwetting. We call these the homicidal triangle. In my experience, cruelty to animals is the #1 predictor of future violent behavior. Serial killers get off on living a double life. Dennis Rader, AKA the BTK Strangler, told me he could compartmentalize his life. On the outside, he was a father, a husband, Boy Scout leader, and president of his church. But deep inside lurked a sexual psychopath. Donald Harvey hid his need to kill behind the gentle face of a caregiver.
He went for over 18 years getting away with it. So, I mean, there wasn't any reason to believe that he would quit except for the fact that he was found out.
Like child killer Joseph Condro, Donald Harvey enjoyed the feelings of control and domination over his victims. Avoiding detection for years on end made Harvey cocky. So cocky, in fact, that he eventually took his deadly work home with him and used his lethal art to settle personal scores. Neighbors, friends, even lovers, no one was safe.
All right, what about Carl, your lover? What did you do to him?
I gave him arsenic for 3.5 years.
And why, though?
I didn't want to kill him. This way to make him sick enough that he'd keep his penis in his pants and stay out of the parks and stuff.
So you knew just enough how much to give him just to make him sick, not to kill him, but just to make him sick enough where he's not going to go out and meet anybody.
Yeah.
And he also took revenge on another friend. Her crime?
She always was telling stories on me.
What did you do to her?
I gave her AIDS serum. She got hepatitis.
Hepatitis B?
Hepatitis B.
She didn't get HIV, though?
No.
Yeah.
As far as I know, she never did.
But she lived?
Yeah, she's alive.
Now, what about Helen Metzger, the neighbor?
She was a very nice lady.
Harvey treated this nice lady to some arsenic-laced leftovers. He spiked a jar of mayonnaise in her refrigerator. He even poisoned pie. Not surprisingly, she eventually succumbed to the poison. Of course, he still volunteered to be a pallbearer at her funeral.
And James Peluso?
He was a friend of mine I met when I was roughly 16. And he told me, he said if he ever got disabled to go on, he wanted me to take him out.
All of Harvey's victims, friend and stranger alike, were just playthings in a deadly game. People like Donald Harvey kill because of a deep, overwhelming sense of inadequacy. Killing is the one thing that makes this guy feel important. After being convicted of killing 37 people in 2 states, Donald Harvey was sentenced to 3 life terms. He won't be eligible for parole until 2043. He will be 91 years old. Harvey seems to me to be surprisingly comfortable here in prison.
It's no different. This place is really no different than, I mean, you got that barbed wire out there, and you got them guns in the tower, and you got your little, say, pedophile area, you got your little killer area, then you got your little wannabe gang area and all this. They're all in there.
When you're in bed at nighttime or you're alone, what kind of things do you think of? Do you ever think of the crimes that got you here?
No.
Any of them? What kind of things do you think of?
I'm building a house, a log house right now, and I've built it 2 or 3 different ways. I'm on 4 bedrooms right now, but I only got 3 baths.
You're doing it in your mind?
Yeah. Sometimes I write down stuff, and then maybe next year it'll be a church, or something different.
Harvey says he doesn't think about his crimes, but I want to know if he regrets them. Does he have any remorse for taking so many lives?
Would there have been any changes along the way, how you responded to certain events in your life? Or is your primary change or concern was you would have done things differently with Powell, the patient that got you here?
Well, I would never gave him the cyanide. I would have cleaned out the G-tube better. But, I mean, I know you can't go back and second-guess yourself. If I did, I'd just go, oh, I just got too much there. And I don't try to second-guess myself anymore.
If you ask me, Harvey is just like most other serial killers now behind bars. His biggest regret is that he made a mistake and got caught. One thing about these guys, most serial killers think the world revolves around them. Remorse for their victims? Forget about it.
If something happened here, you were released, earlier, what do you think? You think, number one, do you think you would kill again? And
no. Be no reason. I wouldn't be working in hospitals. I wouldn't be doing none of that stuff.
I believe Harvey would kill again. I haven't met a serial killer yet who's capable of rehabilitation. The best we can do is catch them and put them where they can't hurt anyone else ever again.
The thing about you are so different than other types of people I've interviewed over the years. How are you able to get away with this for such a long period of time? How did you do it?
You got people that sit back and just watch everything. When you go into a hospital to work, you look at the people. Okay, those people, like maybe they don't have a care in the world, but they do. Those are the kind you sometimes have to watch. I mean, who's to say you're not a serial killer?
That's right.
I mean, you have a fascination with going to talk to them, stuff like that. You might be like a Hannibal Lecter. We don't know. But, I mean, you don't know.
People always ask me, how many serial killers are there in the United States? A conservative estimate is that there are between 30 and 50 active serial killers out there at any given time. By meeting with and understanding more about guys like Donald Harvey and Joseph Condro, I believe we have a better chance of recognizing the criminal signatures of other active serial murderers. These interviews can ultimately help investigators create better profiles to identify and capture the serial killers who are still among us. From Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, I'm John Douglas.